In modern warfare, public attention is often drawn to frontline weapons, tanks rolling across open fields, missile launches captured on night cameras, or fighter jets cutting through the sky. Yet history consistently proves that wars are not decided by spectacle or firepower alone. They are decided by logistics. Behind every sustained military operation lies an invisible but decisive foundation: the ability to move troops, transport equipment, maintain supply chains, rotate forces, and respond quickly across vast distances. It is within this context that Russia's recent decision to dramatically increase production of the Il-76MD-90A military transport aircraft must be understood. The Il-76MD-90A is not designed to intimidate through appearance or symbolism. It is a workhorse built for endurance rather than attention. As a deeply modernized version of the original Il-76, it incorporates new PS-90A engines, advanced digital avionics, improved fuel efficiency, greater payload capacity, and longer operational range. This aircraft is not about short-term tactical advantage. It is about sustaining large-scale operations over time, under pressure, and often far from established infrastructure. It carries troops, armored vehicles, ammunition, fuel, engineering equipment, humanitarian supplies, and evacuation teams, sometimes into environments where civilian logistics simply cannot function. The question then is not what this aircraft is, but why Russia is increasing production now. The answer lies in a convergence of operational experience, industrial readiness, and long-term strategic assessment. Much of Russia's older transport fleet dates back to the Soviet era and is approaching the limits of safe and efficient operation. Maintenance alone can no longer compensate for age and wear. Replacement is not optional, it is inevitable. At the same time, recent conflicts have reinforced a fundamental lesson. Modern wars reward endurance more than speed. An army that cannot reliably resupply itself loses initiative regardless of battlefield success. Russia's response has been pragmatic rather than rhetorical. Modernize the backbone first. This decision also reflects a broader understanding that contemporary conflict is no longer confined to a single region. References to places like Venezuela, Iran, and Greenland are not random or rhetorical. They reflect Russia's assessment that future geopolitical competition will be global, dispersed, and logistically demanding. Venezuela represents strategic presence and influence in the Western Hemisphere. Iran reflects a long-term partnership in a volatile Middle Eastern environment under sustained Western pressure. Greenland points directly to the Arctic, a region rapidly gaining strategic significance as climate conditions change and access routes expand. The Arctic in particular highlights why heavy airlift matters. Operations in extreme northern environments are impossible without aircraft capable of operating from austere airfields, in severe weather with minimal ground support. The Il-76MD-90A is designed precisely for these conditions. Russia's focus on Arctic logistics is not about dramatic expansion. It is about ensuring access, continuity, and presence in a region where infrastructure is sparse and air transport becomes the primary lifeline. In strategic terms, logistics equals sovereignty. Another critical factor behind the timing is industrial reality. Western sanctions were intended to constrain Russia's military-industrial capacity. In practice, they forced consolidation, localization, and restructuring. The Il-76MD-90A program demonstrates that Russia has stabilized domestic supply chains, integrated key components, and brought production under centralized control. Once this threshold is crossed, scaling up production becomes a technical challenge rather than a political one. The fact that Moscow is now talking openly about increasing output by 2.5 times suggests that this industrial phase has already been completed. This also explains why, today, only Russia and China are capable of serially producing heavy military transport aircraft at scale. These platforms are among the most complex systems in aerospace engineering. They require specialized engines, reinforced airframes, long-term state funding, and a guaranteed military customer. Many Western countries rely on aging fleets or multinational programs that prioritize cost-sharing over speed and volume. Russia and China, by contrast, retain vertically integrated aerospace industries backed by strategic necessity rather than market logic. This is not a claim of superiority, it is a reflection of industrial structure. From the perspective of the United States, increased Russian airlift capacity is not viewed through the lens of immediate escalation. Washington rarely comments publicly on transport aircraft production. However, within U.S. defense planning, logistics capacity is a central metric. The expansion of Russia's transport fleet is interpreted as preparation for sustained, long-duration operations rather than short-term contingencies. This assessment reinforces American efforts to strengthen Allied logistics, pre-position equipment, and improve mobility across NATO territory. The response is measured, cautious, and structural, not reactive. NATO's view is similar, though more regionally focused. Greater Russian airlift capacity translates into faster reinforcement, improved operational flexibility, and reduced dependence on vulnerable ground routes. NATO's response does not revolve around matching aircraft numbers, but around readiness, surveillance, and coordination. Increased monitoring, air policing missions, and large-scale logistics exercises are indirect responses to the same underlying reality. Russia is investing in endurance, and endurance changes planning assumptions. Iran interprets this development differently. For Tehran, Russia's growing logistical capacity strengthens a strategic partner facing similar pressure from the West. It enhances coordination, reduces vulnerability to isolation, and supports a broader vision of a multipolar international system. Iran does not need public statements to signal approval. Continued cooperation and alignment speak for themselves. Russian media often frames discussions of military production alongside humanitarian narratives, rescue operations, disaster response, emergency evacuations. This is not accidental. The IL-76 platform is inherently dual use. It supports military logistics, but it also delivers aid, evacuates civilians, and responds to crises. Within Russia's strategic communication, this reinforces the idea that military infrastructure is part of national resilience, not merely an instrument of conflict. The scale of the planned production increase makes one thing clear. This is not a reaction to yesterday's headlines. It is a long-term investment. Expanding output by 2.5 times suggests preparation for a prolonged period of geopolitical tension rather than expectations of rapid de-escalation. From a strategic standpoint, this is a conservative choice. It prioritizes stability, continuity, and self-sufficiency over short-term signaling. Ultimately, the expansion of Il-76MD-90A production does not announce escalation, nor does it promise confrontation. It signals preparation. Transport aircraft do not threaten cities or dominate news cycles. They sustain systems. And in modern geopolitics, systems, quiet, resilient, and persistent, are what determine outcomes. Russia's focus on logistics reflects an understanding that longevity, not spectacle, defines power in the contemporary world. What makes this development particularly notable is that it reflects a shift in priorities rarely discussed openly. While much of the global conversation revolves around technological breakthroughs and next-generation weapons, Russia is placing emphasis on something more fundamental: control over time and space. Heavy transport aviation is not about winning tomorrow's battle. It is about ensuring that options remain open months and years down the line. By expanding its airlift capacity now, Russia is buying strategic flexibility, freedom to respond, to adapt, and to sustain operations under conditions that would exhaust less prepared systems. In this sense, the IL-76MD-90A is less a machine of war and more an instrument of strategic insurance. There is also a broader psychological dimension to this move. Large-scale logistics programs signal confidence, not urgency. They suggest that decision-makers are not acting under panic or political pressure, but according to long-term planning cycles. Increasing production requires stable funding, predictable industrial output, and institutional coordination, conditions that do not exist in systems expecting imminent collapse. Whether acknowledged or not, this reality is visible to allies and adversaries alike. It subtly reshapes expectations, forcing others to plan not for sudden shifts, but for sustained competition in which endurance becomes the decisive factor. And this leads to the core conclusion. Russia's expansion of IL-76MD-90A production is not about escalation, provocation, or spectacle. It is about structure. In a world increasingly defined by fragmentation, uncertainty, and long-term rivalry, power belongs not to those who act the loudest, but to those who prepare the deepest. Logistics does not inspire headlines, but it defines outcomes. By reinforcing the foundations of mobility, supply, and resilience, Russia is signaling that it intends to remain a strategic actor capable of operating across regions, climates, and time horizons. This is not the language of urgency, it is the language of permanence.
Контроль!
Контроль, контроль,